I'm going to talk about living waters and how we can, one of many ways that we can drink from the living waters that Jesus offers us via the Holy Spirit. What living waters is a type of thirst that we don't know that we have. It's kind of the unseen thirst, and it shows itself in everything we do in life. It's the, as some would say, the God shaped hole in our heart that can only be filled with God Himself. And at the end of this video, I'm going to kind of show you proof in the pudding, kind of a synchronicities. I know I talk about synchronicities. A lot of people who are intellectual only, they'll tell you about the synchronicity aspect of life, and they'll point to these circumstances and patterns that are revealed. But the problem is, if you can't interpret the symbolism via the answer the Bible gives or the Holy Spirit gives, then you're going to be sent a totally different direction, because these patterns are being seen all the time, especially if the Holy Spirit shows it to you, or if people teach you to see it. But it can also be given through things like kind of impersonating spirits. That's why you have to test all spirits. And I know this sounds really wild, but a lot of times when you see these patterns show up in front of you and you can see it as clear as day, and it kind of can frighten a few people, it's going to bring a type of fear that's going to drive you into the arms of things that you shouldn't be doing. That's just really important to understand the living waters, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, the living waters being the Holy Spirit, and the connection between whenever God speaks in the Bible, which I'll give the Bible verses toward the end of the video, his voice sounded like rushing waters. And so it's really interesting that Jesus refers to the Holy Spirit as that, because it's a really good way to explain it. It's so much information. It's like drinking out of a fire hose. It's so much information. The Holy Spirit is pouring out so much from so many different angles, from so many different perspectives, from so many different ideas. It's a little bit like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. The Holy Spirit's always doing that. He's always checking you, like, let's take our time, let's walk this through, because you keep trying to explain a square to people. But that's two-dimensional. I'm talking about a Rubik's Cube. I'm talking about something way more complex. I'm talking about cubes within cubes within cubes on top of cubes around cubes. And I don't follow myself. I don't. And so you can see that in my videos that I do kind of struggle with explaining things. But I can do things like show you exact moments that the Holy Spirit showed all this information at one time in a very multidimensional way. And it gives a hope and a joy that's very consistent. It keeps you solid and square in a certain position or place, because it's also kind of threaded with the double-edged sword, which is, because you know this information, you can't pretend you don't. And that's always kind of the scary aspect of it. For example, Moses striking the rock twice and speaking the way he did toward his people. God was clearly frustrated with the people, so it wasn't really the frustration. It was something else. He said, you have chosen to not show me as holy. That's what God said. He said there's something that Moses did that made it clear that he wasn't regarding God himself as holy and separated. And that's what holy means. It means you're separated. So when he said the word we have been, doing these things for you, whatever Moses said, but he kind of implied he was part of the process. And at that part, one would argue that yes, he was, but the problem was God is so holy that he's only we within the Trinity, which is his own complex idea, but it's not a person born on earth first before existing and knowing who God is. It's God and then the parts of him that were born before earth, that were created before earth, or had no beginning, no end, is what I mean to say. Okay, that's what I mean to say. He had no beginning. He existed before these things, not born like man. And so you can't say we if you're not part of the three, which is just different parts of God, right? That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm not trying to misspeak about it, but he wasn't born, right? Moses was. And so he can't say we. But there's other things he did that God regarded as, hey, you kind of knew. You knew you shouldn't do that. And he spent a lot of time with God, so he should have kind of known. And I've always thought it was a little harsh, but I do see the double-edged sword that the Holy Spirit gives. And it's not the one you wield, and it's not the one you hold in your hand. It's the one the Holy Spirit has. It's kind of like, okay, you know the other side of this. There's a coin here, right? There's two sides to this. You got to be careful with the way you do this or that or the other thing. Just like with teaching. Teaching is one of those scary things. The teacher is going to be treated way differently and is going to be regarded and judged way differently in a more harsher fashion than the regular person who just doesn't know. And that's what makes it frightening. And that's why it said in the Bible, you should not want to be teachers, because the judgment against the teacher is way harsher. God's going to expect you to walk it like you talk it, to the best of your ability. You got to, and he knows where that ability begins and where it ends. So moving on, I want to talk about how you can draw, like a pitcher of water out of this well that is without a bottom to the well. It's without end, that Jesus is offering via the Holy Spirit. Part of it is allowing the Holy Spirit to correct you. If you look at the woman by the well, and she has a very complicated story that I'm sure Jesus knew the full of, but if you know how women lived in that time, men could disregard them. So it's not like she's a woman of today who looked at her husband and said, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm just going to go find another guy. Odds are she was living in a place where men held a lot of the authority and decided to discard her in some way, shape, or form that made her uncomfortable through physical abuse, emotional abuse, whatever. And in order to get by, she actually had to have somebody who could sign for property, who could help pay bills, because women in certain societies couldn't work the way men could work or earn the way men could earn, just like in places like overseas, the Middle East, there are a lot of countries where women can't even be seen outside by themselves or drive, stuff like that. So yeah, she might have 5 husbands. Maybe some of those were her choice. I don't know. That's for Jesus to know. But did you ever notice that she took the correction interest in an interesting fashion? She kind of took it like, you really are proving yourself for who you are. Like, Jesus, you're proving who you are, because you know things about me nobody else would know. And he's saying to her, I am not rejecting you. What does that say to you about her story? Because, the Bible likes to do this hiding in plain sight thing. And the hiding in plain sight thing is Jesus will say something that gives clues as to who and what their story is of the person he's talking to. And so he's saying, I'm not rejecting you. You're rejected. You come here at noon because everybody else talks about you. You're the gossip of the community. This community has rejected you. They know that these men have, maybe made gossip about her or made it clear that they've accused her of things. You notice that whenever the women are stoned, they're stoned alone. They're not stoned with men, because it's usually the men who are participating with whatever she's doing who decided, I want to feel righteous and I want to stone her, which is a thing. You can see there's something wrong, because only the women are stoned for such things as adultery, but not the men. So how is that possible? She's having these relations with somebody else. So this community has leaned in, and she knows this. She's going to the well at noon, high noon, because her whole community has rejected her. The sun is high in the sky. Her whole community has rejected her. The sun is high in the sky, at its highest point in the sky. The whole community has rejected her. The sun is at the highest place it is in the sky. She's a leper. The whole community has rejected her. The sun is high in the sky. And he said, I am not rejecting you. He approached her at a very specific time of day that she went there because everybody rejected her. She didn't go in the morning when it was the cool part of the day. She didn't do it in the morning when everybody else goes, because it's the coolest part of the day to carry a heavy burden. She didn't go at the end of the day when it's cooler, because that's where all the women are. They're there at those times of day. She went when the sun was the highest in the sky. Nobody's there but her, sweating, doing the heavy lifting. And he says, I carry your burdens with you. I don't reject you. And he's the Jewish guy, part of a Jewish community that the whole Jewish community rejected, the half Jews that are the Samaritans, which is her people. That's where he's coming from. Doesn't that tell you a story about her? Doesn't that tell you a story about her life? And then he's a man saying to her, I don't reject you. I am with you. That's what she heard. She didn't hear his judgment. She heard what the Holy Spirit was saying to her. Men have rejected you. Your society has rejected you. And I'm from a whole group of people that when they leave your land, they brush off the dirt from their sandals on their feet. They brush it off because they don't want this cursed land with half Jews, They don't want that land on their shoes because they think that they're going to carry the curse with them into the next town. That's how much they hate you and your people and your land. They don't want the dust from your land on their shoes so that they can curse the next land with your people, and the possibility of that something from your people might be in the dust. And here she is meeting with him. Here she is. And he's basically making it clear that he's the living water. And with that, with living water, which is the truth that she heard, when we hear it, we hear judgment. When we hear it, there's emphasis on, well, she was with 5 men. Why? Was it because she was rejected? Was it because of a lack of support? Or are you just looking for, a Jezebel spirit in the story? The Jezebel spirit that's so Jezebel that even Jesus himself rejected her. Is that how the story went? Or did he say, I see your plight, I see your pain, I see what's happening to you, and I'm going to meet you where you are and give you exactly what you need? Because there's mercy in what Jesus does. He absolutely judged her, but that's not what she heard. He absolutely told her the truth, and that's what she heard. And that's how the Holy Spirit works. And what the Holy Spirit can do is it can give these two different things. Like it can work in the past tense with flashbacks. It can work in the forward. So moving forward, just like with King David, God was a little hard on King David. Like, yes, he protected him. He was, about that business with keeping David safe. He understood that David was chasing after God, but he also saw that David had this fleshy thing with lust. And he had many wives, but nobody will talk about Solomon having 700 wives. Nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about the woman who's the lesser of her society, who was probably rejected by a bunch of dudes. Jesus kind of confirmed that. And we want to talk about her and how she's, a Jezebel spirit, or worse words. But we don't talk about David and all the women he had. No, we won't talk about that because he's a man, right? Anyway, God talked about it. Do you want to know why that is? I'm under the impression that, and this is important for what I'm explaining, that King David is probably one of the 24 elders that sit on the throne that are from the Ancient of Days. That's who I think he is, because he's from the bloodline that Jesus came from, and he was told that your throne will last forever. And when John the Revelator was having that experience up in heaven, actually going to heaven, there were 24 elders and 24 thrones. Who are they? They were all crowned, and they took their crown and they put it before Jesus Christ and at his feet. I believe the reason why God was doing what he was doing with David was because he's like, it doesn't just end here. Not only does it end with your bloodline becoming Christ and him actually sitting on the ultimate throne at the right hand of the Father, but I believe that he was, and you can see it throughout the whole story, that David is one of the 24 elders. There's all kinds of signs that he's one of those. And so that's why God is a little bit harder on him. As a matter of fact, whenever King David did a judgment, and then when the prophet would say, hey, that was you, David, and then the judgment had to be turned, and then whatever he wanted to be done to somebody else, King David wanted vengeance against somebody, he had to accept, okay, well, this is going to happen against me because I made the judgment. And that is the double-edged sword I'm talking about. Just like when King David counted the census, he counted his mighty men. And then he realized God didn't like that. And then the angel of the Lord came to David and said, you got 3 options. There's a plague, there's famine, or you're going to die at the hands of your enemy. You got 3. And he said, listen, which revealed his heart. He said, listen, I don't want to die at the hands of man. I prefer to be in the hands of my God, and whatever he wants of me, I'll go into the hands of God, but please don't let me be at the hands of my enemy. And he said, because I'm the one who did the mistake, make sure it goes against me and not the land, not the people. So he was highly responsible. And in everything he did, even when he was convicted by God, he always said, I'll take responsibility. I'll take accountability. That sounds like one of the 24 elders, does it not? That sounds like a judge who everything he's doing and saying, God's like, okay, well, you better be careful because whatever you pronounce will be done unto you if you're wrong. You better be guided just so. And so somebody would look at that, just like the lady at the well, we could see the darkness within that. Oh my gosh, that's a very serious burden of being a teacher, a king of Israel. But what I see is I see the promise of heaven peeking through that story. And that's the joy that comes in. It's like, yeah, you're being burdened now. Yes, this is painful now. Yes, you're rejected by your community. But if he's standing with you, then who they're really rejecting isn't just you. They're rejecting the King of Kings. And he is allowed to pronounce judgments. You might not be able to. But the one that stands with you is looking back at that community and going, I got ideas about how I feel about them. And me and you are going to talk about it. And this might be a reflection of how close you could be in the next life to Jesus Christ. Because he had to wander out and find you because nobody else had you. And guess what? When you're in heaven, he's going to have you there too. And there's a joy in that. There's something really wonderful and awesome in that. And you can see, just like in the Passion of the Christ, when he'd have those really like vivid memories of him and his mom, having fun, and it got him through those really hard times. That's what heaven does in the past tense. He does that, the Holy Spirit. But he also does that in the forward. He's like, be still. Because at the end of all this, there's a treasure built up in heaven. And that treasure doesn't end with you. It extends outward to your family. So this is what I want to bring to the forward here is a picture that I've decided to cover. Everybody kind of knows what I look like. I have videos of myself. But you can see here, we're in Minnesota, and there's these waterfalls in the North Shore. And my family and I, for my daughter's 16th birthday, decided we're going to go see those waterfalls. And I remember when I was making this video, kind of the Holy Spirit spoke. And it was just like this rushing waters. I was thinking, when's the last time I was in front of rushing waters? And the Holy Spirit started doing that whole synchronicity right before my eyes. And it was very encouraging. It gave me a lot of hope and a lot of joy. And I had personally made through the Cricut. Cricut is a device where you can make t-shirts and stuff like prints. And I had made t-shirts for this trip where we're going to go to the waterfalls. And, the water's very loud. You can't really talk to each other because the water's so loud in the background. And we all took pictures of each other and ourselves as a group wearing the same t-shirt, same color, with different kind of things we chose to the front because I customized them. And the one I have here is Apocalypse. And every single shirt had the leaf that kind of, it's the saints. It's the symbol of the saints. I forgot, leaf de fleur or something. And we all got to choose what bands that we were going to pick that happened to be my brother's favorite bands and his favorite song. So we all chose a song of his that he liked on his playlist. And I abbreviated the band's name on one sleeve. I put all of the little saint symbol on the sleeve, and on the other sleeve I put 16 with a rose for my little girl. And so we're all in a Sweet 16 party traveling Minnesota, which is what she wanted. She wanted to go back to where she was born and kind of hang out with her family up there. I have a family picture of all of us together wearing these shirts, blue shirts, with the symbol of sainthood, and the rushing waters behind us. That is everybody's dream, is it not? I mean, if you're a Christian and you feel like if there's any soul that you would help, like that would be a treasure in heaven, wouldn't it? To have people in your family come to Christ. That is quite the treasure. But it's because of what he did. And it gave me a lot of hope. Like we were already marked for heaven and we're already there before rushing waters, and it made me very happy. And that's what the Holy Spirit does. It keeps you, it's a joy that's different than what the world understands. It's something deeper. It's something that is eternal and forever. And it always has God peeking through the seams at you, reminding you that all things work for the good of those that are called to his purpose. And that gives you so much faith, and it gives you so much joy and so much happiness, knowing that he's working. Even when you don't see it, you can have faith in what he's doing, as long as you're willing to see, even in the judgments, that it's working something that will last forever. King David being judged by God. He's saying, everything you say is so important that I need you to know the consequence of your judgments, because where you're going, your judgments are going to echo for eternity. Everybody's going to know what the words you speak when you speak to God. And there is hope in that. There's something like, I mean, that's literally the invitation to be one of the 24 elders that everybody knows about, but is a mystery to everybody but God. And He's working out your purpose. You're not born into being one of the 24 elders. I believe it's something that He works within us. And I'm not talking about you or me, I'm talking about David. But that's the same for sainthood. Sainthood is the same way, it is the same level. So you get to walk humbly with your King. Well, He's going to humble you first. And you have to know how to walk with Him, and that He's going to do all the heavy lifting, and that He's going to see and show and reveal through the Bible and through the synchronicities within the Bible, and the importance of sainthood from a young age, and the fact that it should be accessible. I really am getting an emphasis on that via the Holy Spirit, because I have seen children in my family who, when sainthood is revealed to them from a young age, or given to them or offered to them, where they know Jesus, there's an emphasis on who Jesus is and how we should love Him, and that they are saints. There is a type of synchronicity that is like whiplash. Like, these saints are the closest, especially the little ones. They're so close to Jesus, they will casually do what Jesus did at the well. They'll casually do that and then go back to playing. It is the most frightening thing I have ever seen in my life. Where they'll take all the synchronicities that took, weeks to reveal. They'll say it in one sentence and go off and play and act like they didn't say anything. And it is so scary, because it's God revealing that He works through the smallest, the most innocent people, the young ones, very specifically. I'm not talking about adults. And so if I could leave you with anything in this video, it is call your little ones saints from a young age. Sanctify them by calling them that. Baptize them as quickly as possible. I know the Catholic Church, I know there's a debate, but I think that first baptism is fine, because the Jewish people do it too. They have this whole thing for the christening of their children. They don't call it that though. And if we do that, and then there's a second version where they consciously accept it and maybe get rebaptized again because they're conscious of it, that'd be great too. The more the better. The more the better. So just keep instilling that, teaching them about who Jesus is and how they can, in their life, through the things that have happened in their life, see Jesus, sharing your Holy Spirit experience with them. I think that is so important, and I think it robs people, and I think that's the reason why it's so important the Holy Spirit's emphasizing it. It's because it's pure robbery when you don't do that. You're robbing them of something so important, and it's something that nobody can offer to them after that point. Of course, they can become saints at any point in their life, but there's something about that young age, before like 7 years old, that's really important, that they know who He is, and they're able to start the practice of understanding the Holy Spirit and doing the things the Holy Spirit's asking them to do without even really realizing it. It's really kind of interesting, but may God be with you.